Yes, hello. We have two friends in this conversation, in this talk. My friend Özcan Çetin, Kurdish friend, and Mariano López de Miguel from Asturias. Let's have a presentation from you.
Please, first Özcan, please. Well, I have to say that it's been a pleasure to be here with both Juan Carlos and Özcan. Many people maybe knows me with other podcasts with Juan Carlos about commonly about Ukraine. My name is Mariano López de Miguel. I'm from Asturias, currently living in Madrid. I'm a secondary school teacher for the community of Madrid, and I'm currently doing my PhD dissertation about the first Taliban emirate in Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001. Now, please, Özcan.
All right. It's a pleasure to meet you, Mariano. This is Özcan, but you can call me Can. Basically, I know my name is hard to be pronounced by non-Turkish speakers. So this is Can. I mainly conduct research and analysis on the Middle East, while focusing on Syria, Iran, Turkey, and Iraq. Let's say the Kurdish area. But yeah, I'm interested in any kind of international relation stuff, let's say.
And also, so sorry, I can remember that C in the Turkish alphabet is like Y in our alphabet, I think.
Oh, really? All right.
Yes, we are here mainly because Putin gave a party in Moscow, in the Red Square, saying the world, oh, we have Zaporizhzhia, we have Kherson, we have Luhansk, we have Donetsk, inside New Russia, Imperium. Okay, good. 24 hours later, Liman is free. So, what type of New Russia is that?
Well, I have to say that in the beginning, those terms linked to the Kremlin mismanagement of Novorossiya has been in debate since 2014, since the illegal occupation and annexation after a fake referendum in the Crimea. So now it is the end of the last trail of the, how to say, the speakers of the Kremlin, like Peskov, like, oh, well, we have again these territories illegally occupied by Ukrainian people. Now Russia and Novorossiya are free. Commonly now, we maybe start that project that Alexander Solzhenitsyn called how to manage or how to rebuild Russia, in 1994. So I think it is a personal opinion that it's the end of the road, but also the beginning of a hot conflict. We have a new Cold War after the February 24 invasion, and now we have a chessboard between not only Russia, we have Russia, of course, Ukraine, the invaded country, the European Union, USA, but also China and other countries commonly linked in a friendship relation with Russia, like Turkey, like India, which they say, sorry, no way to the annexation. You have to go back these regions to Ukraine. No way with that. How to manage this? I cannot say a word about it.
Well, like Mariano says, he's giving a general picture, let's say the big picture. But regarding the failure of Russia, I would want to elaborate Russian military a little bit. I mean, I'm not expert on military. I'm not a military expert. I'm not Russian expert. But as far as I know, Russian history tells us that the successful generals, successful military people, let's say, are being punished. I mean, like one day, one of my friends told me that Russian deep state doesn't like a successful army. They keep army. They see army as a threat. They keep army aside. And yeah, since World War II, Russian army didn't face a real enemy, real rival. Well, in Georgia they were successful relatively, but I mean, all we know that Georgian army didn't receive any support like Ukrainian army did, or they. Let's go a little bit back. Failure of the Soviet Union, right after failure of Soviet Union, Russian army attacked, or they say the war broke up between Chechen ethnic groups and the Russian army. And who is the winner? Chechen army. It was small guerrilla groups got the victorious against the second biggest army in the world. And let's have a quick look on the Russian army. What's happening in Ukraine right now? Other armies like Turkey, NATO armies like Turkey, even China, France, the US, even Iran, advanced in the drone technology. But anyone heard about Russian drone used in Ukraine? Personally, I didn't. That's why they are purchasing drones from Iran. So there, and other reason, other dynamic. Let's say Russian army is consisting of the minorities. They are based on the ethnic groups from far or let's say rural areas, and Russian army represents the difference, social gap between the ethnic groups. Chechens, Tatarians, ethnic groups from Russian Federation are joining our army, Russian army, while the Russians themselves are running away from, let's say, escaping from the partial military mobilization. So these things can be elaborated, of course. I'm sure Mariano has more idea than I do, more opinion and more knowledge than I do. But these things are the reasons I see are failure of the Russian army in Ukraine.
It's an interesting point that because minorities in Russia are being killed by the aggression of Russia inside Ukraine, because it's a political problem if they move people in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and the big cities for the regime. And in that situation, you have the word by the Kremlin saying genocide, Donbas genocide. 40,000 people being killed in a war from 2014 to 2022. It's true, but yes, 11,000 people was uniform people, yes, in Russian army and Ukrainian army. Only 3,000 people were killed by civilian people being killed. What is this? It's like one September 11 in 8 years, separated in 8 years. Look, it's interesting the comparison, because by the side of the losses of Russian army, it's a gap between what the Ukrainians say. Ukrainians say there have been 60,000 Russian military deaths. It's more than United States in Vietnam War. It's more. Or what Russian says, that is 6,000. What is more than United States in Iraq in 2 decades. It's very important what is losing Russia inside and outside.
Yes, I totally agree. And also I have to say that Özcan has been absolutely right about minorities. There has been an ongoing uprising in the Northern Caucasus region, which belongs to the Russian Federation, especially with people from Ingushetia, and as far as I know, especially from Dagestan, which is a region, that it's have about no less than I think 35 ethnicities. No one makes up or make up high majority. The principal one are the Avars, followed by the Ledjins, Dargins, etc. All these people suffer from a phase of guerrilla war of Islamic uprising between 1999 to 2009. And those people now are conscript as well as they were in the invasion of Georgia, the so-called Russo-Ukrainian War in August 2008, and alerts, etc. That seems, as Özcan said, that no one from Slavic heritage, from regions like Moscow, Nizhny Novgorod, etc., came to the conscription to fight against an unpopular war. So we must think about it, and also what you say, Juan Carlos, about this kind of giant with map feet, because as far as we see, currently the losses of the Russian Federation Army is higher than all the so-called adventure in the Vietnam War of the United States. More than 60,000 people. How can you manage it and show that to the public opinion? I'm thinking that all the Kremlin politicians are currently in a state of disgrace.
Yeah, talking about failure of the Russian army, we have to talk about maybe ethnic group in Ukraine. I mean, let's be honest. The areas Russian Federation just annexed. I'm not defending Russia or Putin, but the provinces that were annexed to Russia are hosting majority of Russian speakers and Russians themselves. And we have to make a small, let's say, paragraph about mistakes of the Ukraine. If I'm mistaken, please correct me. In 2014, Ukraine announced as an official language, and kind of Russian language became the secondary, and they face kind of challenges and difficulties to speak and keep their cultures. And this is what I saw, as far as I know. Again, this is what I heard about Ossetia. Sorry, not Ossetia. What's the name of this place annexed by the Russian in Georgia, from Georgia?
Abkhazia, maybe.
Abkhazia. Yes, Abkhazia. And I heard the same story from them. One of my Abkhaz friends told me that we are not happy about being part of Russia, but Georgian government didn't leave us any other choice. They banned our language, they banned our culture. They didn't treat us as prime citizens. And I feel like, I don't have any information, but I feel like the same mistake have been repeated in Ukraine. And this kind of mistakes give opportunity regimes like Russia to annex somewhere, Yeah, and I'm sure, all we agree that this referendum is not really not the most democratic one in the world, and surprisingly and ironically, Russian state asked OSCE to monitor the elections, the referendum in the annexed provinces. But let me remind you, last year, could be 2 years ago, I'm not sure, let's say a couple of years ago, Russian government asked OSCE not to send observers to Russian elections anymore. But ironically, they asked OSCE, the same organization, to observe elections in Donetsk and Luhansk.
And also, sorry, I have to say that you are absolutely right about the Georgian subject or the Georgian problem. Since Zaporizhzhia, who was the first democratically elected president of Georgia, that country has been facing many challenges and problems. First of all, I have to say that maybe Juan Carlos remember it, that we could talk about Zaporizhzhia as a kind of proto Slobodan Milosevic. I say it because I know that difference between them are deeper than that we are talking, but also Gamsahurdia in the early months of 1991, before the Soviet collapse, said people who want a Georgian passport must be at least from three generations of Georgian people, grandparents, parents, and their own. Some people from Abkhaz or Ossetian or even Adjarian, Mingrelian heritage said, what are you talking about? Are you currently talking about that even after this so-called independence, we are not a first class or common citizens of this kind of federation, republic? Because at that time, no one knows what kind of political system will prevail in Georgia. So many people opt for a maybe first referendum, both in Ossetia and in Abkhazia, and then the war started. Maybe Juan Carlos could remember these things better than me.
No, I can't remember that fine as requested. But it's true that in Georgia there are that so-called regions called Abkhazia and South Ossetia breaking one Olympic thread, and the truth of Peking Olympic Games, what is very important in past, but for Russia is waste time. Go on, please.
Yeah, and about that, only say that you are absolutely right. That also, we must remember that 2008 was a key point to the actual events. Many people could tell us how 2008. First, in February, the unilateral independence of the so-called Republic of Kosovo. Then the August War between the separatist region or the outbreak regions of Abkhazia, South Ossetia, Russia, and Georgia. And then at the end of that month of August 2008, when at that time the president of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, signed up a decree and UCAS to legitimize the independence of the regions, but not at all annexing it, because even now with this problem, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, and Transnistria don't want to enter the Russian Federation. Okay, they have a kind of commercial partnership, military Russian military bases, and etc. But who knows what could be next? Must we, after this kind of fake referendum, be frightened about a possible invasion of Moldova by the Russian Federation? What will be next? Who knows? Because the situation is even worse. That at that time in 1985, after the NATO deployed Persian missiles inside the Federal Republic of Germany. So no one knows what will be next, because the situation is changing for every 5 minutes on.
I would say, if I can, that the worst thing the United Nations and the world could do is making an icon and legitimating it. What about this? Because if one country number one attacks country number two and gets some parts of country number two, some provinces, and makes in 1 week a referendum inside the war, makes a referendum, gives them passports and everything. It's an opportunity for everyone to make the same. It's an opportunity, for example, for China for taking or retaking the territorial changes in 19th century by the hands of Russia. So the receipt is given. We cannot legitimate it by the good of the world.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk forever about the dramatic rise of the nationalism in post-Soviet nations, right? I see the same thing in Armenia. Okay, Armenia can be an exception. I see the same thing in Azerbaijan. I saw the same thing in Ukraine, also in Russia and Georgia, apparently, as Mariano informed us. And I want to take your attention one of words that Mr. Putin mentioned yesterday. He carefully didn't blame whole the world, West or Europe plus the US. He carefully used this phrase, Anglo-Saxons. Anglo-Saxons sabotaged our Nord Stream. I mean, and he actually blamed US and the UK apparently to be to doing something not in favor of the rest of Europe, rest of world, rest of Western world, you can say. So that's quite interesting from my side, because apparently Russia wants, on the other side, wants a good relationship with France and Germany and rest of the Europe, while fighting against the US and the UK. So as all we know that in the Ukraine, UK and the US are leading the war, especially UK. I mean, I remember the speech, the announcement from the UK former Prime Minister Boris Johnson. He was very eager to attack Russia. He was very eager to get into the war. What do you think, Mariano?
I think you are absolutely right, because this firebrand speech by Vladimir Putin on the afternoon, Friday's afternoon, I think, it was not about the other European Union countries. It was even about the westernized society. It is about the United States and the former member of the European Union, as it was the United Kingdom. Yes, you are absolutely right. And it is funny that at the beginning, in this speech, supposedly, Mr. Putin was eager to talk about other referendums like Kosovo, like also the Iraqi Kurdistan in 2018, and many others on, which link every time to this society governed by not by the USA, not governed by the United Kingdom no more. It is the Soros, these oligarchs, these internationalists who wants to destroy Russian heritage. It is funny because, as far as we know, Russia has interfaced all the countries in the Western and Eastern Hemisphere since World War II. CC influenced regions in Africa until 1991, as the USSR collapsed. Also in Central Asia, even now after the independence of the stans, just we could watch what happened in Kazakhstan in early this year. Also another thing which was silenced by the press, that was the uprising in Uzbekistan in July this year in the autonomous region of Karakalpakstan, and of course the situation in Syria, the situation in Iraq as well, especially after the killing of Qasem Soleimani. So yes, of course, the West has been many times doing silly and terrible things. History has told us these terrible facts, but also Russia has been guilty of doing some strange and terrible things as well. Juan Carlos talked about the situation after the annexation of these regions, which could be made by China. Remember that these days the situation between mainland China and Taiwan has been terrible. Also, China has been already belligerent with Japan, with his new prime minister, and also even with a supposedly ally, which is Vietnam and Laos, for the Mekong Delta, etc., and the fisheries. So it's not only a regional or a continental, which we are talking about Europe and about Ukraine. It is a global class, which also has been preceded with other ones, that the civil war in Syria, also the implosion or breakup of Yugoslavia, which has been a problem now because today they are scheduled elections, presidential election in Bosnia and Herzegovina, which no one knows what could be next, and of course, the troublemakers in the Middle East.
Yeah. So maybe we should talk about Nord Stream pipeline. I mean, it's obvious that it's a sabotage, right? I mean, let's not fool each other. It's not an incident. It's not an accident. So it's probably sabotage, and the rest of Europe is not, for sure, not happy. I mean, Germany, France, and the rest of European Union members, Spain as well, for sure not happy. And I do agree that it's not all about Ukraine. It's whole world, like the chessboard, you know. And I don't know if you will agree with me. Ukraine of today is like Spanish Civil War before the World War II. Well, I really hope there will be not World War III, but I mean, it's the same world, right? Very similar.
Yeah, it's not only to the Spanish Civil War and what happened after it, and the uprising of the kind of fascist state linked to Nazi Germany, fascist Italy. Also, when the West or the so-called liberal democracies turn around their head against Spain, and after that, World War II began. But also not only to Spain, which is a clear and good reference. Also, we could talk about the situation in Czechoslovakia after the Berlin Conference, or the Munich Conference, in 1938, when the Democrats around Europe wanted to contempt both Mussolini, especially Hitler, disbanded Czechoslovakia and became the protectorate of Bohemia, Moravia, etc., in order to make a peace deal for at least 10 years. The peace lasts only for nearly 1 year. So we must know that the situation now is not only, as you could correctly say, not only for Europe, for the whole world, and which link in the past that can show us what could be our darkest future.
Interesting point. 1993 and Hitler gets power, and 1938 Munich conference. 5 years in power, they get the European powers in a conference. Of course, in Civil War, Spanish Civil War, in the first month, appeared very images of church burning in Anglosphere, so that appeared to be propaganda for non-intervention. But it's curious, making a non-intervention committee with France, United Kingdom, Italy, and Germany. Non-intervention in Spanish Civil War, and Italy and Germany giving guns, people, ships, everything. What happened with France and United Kingdom? In Munich, in that year, in 1938, they were in a room, Germany, Italy, France, United Kingdom, and in another, Czechoslovakia, talking about what do with Sudets and what do with Czechoslovakia. And at the end, going to that room, to Czechoslovakia, and saying, oh, we have decided. It's interesting point, because what Putin would want in 2022 is having a meeting with United States, United Kingdom, maybe France and Germany, and say, oh, we get this piece, this other, this to Poland, this to Romania, this for Moldova, and this for us, making a puppet states called Ukraine around Kyiv. And then go to the other room and say to the Ukrainians, oh, we have decided this. It's like 18th century. All for the people, but without the people. 18th century. It's impossible to accept. And when people say, oh, Soros, oh, conspiracy, please, to those people, read Open Society and Its Enemies. For talking about Soros, at least read that book. But the people say, oh no, it's conspiracy, global order, new world order. Satanism in the party was talking about jihad, not jihad in Islamic type of jihad, but the holy war. Holy war? And leftist supporting this holy war by Kremlin? It's crazy, but it's segmentized. There are segments of propaganda made for a specific target. Nord Stream, of course, that propaganda says it's a lake of NATO. Baltic is a lake of NATO. What the hell is Kaliningrad? There are only 100 meters. I don't know what is in feet, but 100 meters to put a bomb and explode. A small boat can do. So it's for stupids saying, oh, Nord Stream is guilty United States. United States? You know what is the form in which Germany could actuate, will do if Germany knows that United States has blown Nord Stream? Of course, the country that will buy gas GNL to United States, giving in risk because blowing a pipeline that is not in use. And for sure, you know better than mine, but Russia has did this before, blowing a pipeline and after that going to war. So for sure that sabotage is and is made by Russia.
Interesting. Mariano, your speakers.
Sorry, I was mute. So sorry so much. No, I was talking about, if you want, first of Jan, but I totally agree with both of you, especially the situation regarding the Munich conference in 1938 to now, and also the Kremlin move, talking about a common kind of meeting which will surpass Minsk Accords from 2015 to 2016, and then made a new peace deal, but without having no one related to the Ukrainian government over the table. And of course, nothing about Crimea, sorry, and by the way, of course, with the new annexed territories. About the pipelines, it is as easy as for example, those kids which blew away United States destructor in the early 21st century called the USS Cole. It was a simple boat with two kids which immolated themselves, and now we are talking about a kind of frogman, a kind of special unit which the Russian Federation Army has, that can blow up not only a pipeline or gasoduct, they can do a kind of sabotage military operations in every type or every region. So about this, only one more thing. Juan Carlos said that the so-called new left-winged people says that Russia has been right. Not only in the invasion, it is not an invasion for them. It's not even a war, an open war with terrible consequences. it is a kind of anti-terrorist or, operation, denazification operation, and so on. And we must talk about the Kremlin propaganda with people like this naive man, new kind of Rasputin called Alexander Dugin.
No. So it looks like I'm only one who think Nord Stream was blown up by the U.S. I'm still sticking on the same idea actually, because I remember Blinken's speech today. He was like, this opportunity, blowing up the Nord Stream is an opportunity for the Europe to not use Russian energy corridor anymore. I don't know, it looks fishy to me, but I'm not going to justify, or I'm not going to be against it. So only you guys state that Russia has dirty propaganda machine, and I'm not going to justify them. But this one doesn't look like to be a Russian propaganda to me. And besides, last year, almost 1 year ago, February 21st, Russian propaganda machine were working very, very effectively, I would say. They were spreading. They were even mocking on the U.S. reports. If you remember, U.S. and the Western media or sources were announcing that Russia will attack in a couple of days, or getting ready. They are massing up their troops, and Russian propaganda, Russian media were like, okay, tell us which day we will attack, and we will be noted. I mean, they were making fun with Western intelligence, and in the end, it was Western intelligence who is right. So I totally agree with you guys about Russian propaganda, but regarding Nord Stream, I think a little bit different.
Good, if you can explain how and why, it's interesting issue, but let's think a little bit about this, because it is made that sabotage near Germany and near Denmark, not as it could be possible be done near Karelia, near St. Petersburg. It will be possible to make very damage to the same pipeline, but in a site where not affecting a close friend in NATO, that is Germany. Germany can be peaceful since 1945, but they are revancheable. They can make revenge when it's necessary. To that one that has made that blow up in Nord Stream will pay the consequences. You may know about this. So that pipeline was over nothing. For Nord Stream 2 was not open never. Nord Stream 1 for several months had gas in the pipeline, but from several weeks ago was closed. Germany has another pipeline from Norway. From Norway, they can get the possibility of 60 BTM. In the Nord Stream 1, there was 70. So it's close, the numbers. So what the proper Germany imports from Norway, it's some like what was importing from Russia, and it's very close. The crossroad. Yes. Oh.
It's okay. It seems that it is a very small problem with the connection. Whatever I had to say before Özcan came back, that, well, we know about the so-called black ops made up by the United States. But as you currently are saying, Juan Carlos, we must think in quite examples like something years ago, which was 1999 bombing of Moscow, Volgodonsk, and if my mind does not fail, in Crimea also, those apartment bombings which started the Second Chechen War. I'm not saying that the Nord Stream blew up could be a part of, I don't know how to say, black ops, as I told before, made up by United States, etc. But it remembers me very, very much, and I'm not pointing my finger into the Kremlin or putting a crossfire inside Putin's head, but I have my remembrance in 1999, those facts which happened in September 1999 before the Second Chechen War, and also these kind of attacks, which are made in so many cases by FSB, GRU, the SBR. Everybody knows what could be done by the Russian special or secret services.
I was trying to say that the crossroads in the sea near Denmark, in upside Germany, that that pipeline from Norway to Germany and Poland is near, very close to Nord Stream 1 and 2 and the sabotage. And it's how and why now? Because Germany is not needed. There are contracts with Qatar, with Australia, with United States and many other countries by Germany and other countries in Europe to supply that possible gas from Russia. Why now and why there? Why now and why there? Because it's a moment when Ukraine is retaking parts of the country. This is a form of dismissing the attention, giving point to Nord Stream when the attention is the retaking of Ukraine. Why United States could do this to displacing the attention point from one side to another? And just there, it's a menace to the Western countries, saying you will not have Russian gas. Russia is indeed prepared to blow up yours pipelines. I will blow up mine because I will show you how it is made. And how it is made, I can do with yours in North Sea and inside Norway, inside Great Britain, inside Denmark. So if it's the day in the winter when you have frozen your house, remember that if you want Russian gas, you will have to pay the repairment of Nord Stream by your side. So enjoy your decision. It's like a firm. It's Kremlin firm by my point of view.
Well, I don't have too much thing to say about Nord Stream. I mean, it's very fluid. We are not investigators. We will never know who did it, but we can just estimate. But I can answer a couple of your questions. Why they blow up in part of European part instead of the Russian part? It's very easy. If they could blow up, if they have blown up the Russian part of the Nord Stream, Russians will repair it very immediately, very easily. So it makes sense to me. And regarding what you tell me about Germany's close ally, actually, it's not. When it comes to Ukraine, it was the really painful ally, like you say. They were not very willing to help Ukraine. Still, there is no concrete help from Germany for the Ukrainian army. I mean, they said we are sending the tanks, we are doing that, we are doing this, but there is nothing on the ground. Even the French army suffered more than Germany, And well, UK and the US are the leading the world for sure, but other Western allies, except Turkey, if you consider it as ally, doesn't really help Ukraine a lot, So Ukrainian army itself with support of the UK and the US, are fighting against Russia. And I would love to come to the first point, that Russian military. This is the biggest challenge since World War II for the Russian army, and it's because it's really big. It's really big. This biggest challenge is really big for the Russian army. They are not only fighting against Ukrainian army, which is very well equipped, very well trained, unlike Russian army, and they are getting support from UK and the US with high technology, high training standards, and Russians are just right after, like you say, Juan, right after annexing provinces of Ukraine to Russia, they lost Liman. They lost Liman. It's like very, very symbolic, I would say.
Yes, and I have to. I appreciate Özcan's words about Turkey because, as far as we know, okay, Turkey is a NATO member, but it's not. Many people say, well, we must think about the situation in Ukraine. No member of the NATO has been inside the organization or been into the organization if they have territorial problems and ongoing war, etc., like it happened with Georgia or even with Moldova. But Turkey, as a member of the NATO, nearly started a war against another NATO member, the Operation Attila in 1974 and the occupation of the northern part of Cyprus, with a hot limit war with Greece. And now many people in the European Union says, okay, Turkey is an ally, it is a NATO member. No, they have a kind of monolithic autocrat, which is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And we know that Erdogan waves the water in the way he wants. Now it is a kind of mediator between Russia and the European Union, and even with the USA or the NATO. But years ago, it maybe enter a war with Russia in late 2015, when a Russian fighter plane was down by another Turkish plane inside Syria. So we must think that maybe this kind of so-called allies are not at all. And many people are talking about the implication for a peace roundtable with China, etc. Why? Because they are members of the Security Council with veto vote. No, we must think that this war has an aggressor, Russia, and an attack state, which is no more than Ukraine. So let's talk about peace, but in the way that Russia must withdraw from the occupying regions, and by the way, how Russia will pay war costs to Kyiv. So it is my point of view, but maybe I'm wrong.
No, I just will add something on your words. I don't see that Turkey will be a mediator between Russia and the West. I mean, they can. It's about Turkish domestic dynamics. The elections are coming. It's not really far. Only 8 months left to elections, and it's a good polishing. But it's not really what's happening right now. I mean, we are talking about bad allies, painful allies like Germany and Turkey in the NATO. Also, US, UK, and other member of the NATO don't want to see Turkey in field of Ukraine. Actually, I mean, let's be honest. Ukraine doesn't need Turkey too much. I mean, drones are good. They're painful for the Russia, but Russians are so purchasing drones from Iran, which so far what I see is very effective. I will say. Not game changer, but it's quite effective. They also use in Iraq and in Iraq and Afghanistan, I guess. Yemen, sorry, they are using it. So it's quite effective. I mean, yeah, Turkish drones are helping the Ukrainian army, but it's not a game changer for them so far, because they are receiving better equipment from the US and the UK. So this is my impression, my feelings. Let's say even the US doesn't want Turkey because of the policy in the Middle East. It was very painful recently. Not prefer Turkey to be in field of Ukrainian war.
Okay.
Our first one is busy with something.
No, I have to say that I agree with you before Juan Carlos talks also. And yes, maybe the situation is that not all the countries want Turkey as a mediator, but the Turkish president Erdogan wants to show himself, all the country as a mediator. But who knows?
It's interesting one
For the
thing
domestic
about Turkey, because recently they denied the Russian system of banking in a part of the Western system that it's commonly known. Russia was denied by the beginning of the aggression in Ukraine, and Turkey was one of the only countries what was permitted in the using of that Russian alternative system. But in the recent days, Turkey, in the public bank and the private banks, have started denying that system, what was very important for some kind of surpassing the Western economic inputs about the sanctions on Russia. So it is more important or less important for retaking the idea of Turkey and Recep Tayyip Erdogan as a mediator, a meeting point in Istanbul or Ankara, giving this role to China?
If I add something, I will repeat the same thing in the previous section. It's all about domestic dynamics. Turkey is not very willing to play such a role. I mean, yeah, they wouldn't say no, but I mean, it's not primary for them. They need it because the Turkish economy is not doing well. We need energy, and we need something to show to people. The system, Russian system, banking system. Turkey was unwilling to do so.
Yes, we can go on.
So we were talking about Özcan and myself about the situation inside Turkey, and yes, I think it is a link to domestic policies. Since 2018, Turkey have transition formed a kind of a parliamentary republic to a presidential model without the office of the prime minister. Now all the power is inside a kind of autocrat, a kind of neo-sultan, which is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. But the situation now have discordant voices. We have the Kurdish issue, especially after the, I think maybe Özcan could correct me about the People Party, which is linked to Kurdish agenda and federalism, as banned. Yeah. I think it was banned by the Supreme Court. They have the problem of the hyperinflation, especially after 2020 and the ongoing COVID pandemic. And by the way, the situation in the international sphere of Turkey has been damaged by the policies of Recep Tayyip Erdogan, especially in the Middle East, but also in Africa, with the implication of Ankara in countries like Somalia, Djibouti, etc., and other Middle East countries, as well as Qatar, the Qatar crisis from 2017 to 2020. And by the way, he has facing also a kind of inside the party, the Ike party opposition, which many people or former members of the parliament, even former ministers, telling him to step down to the upcoming presidential elections, telling 20 years, Mr. President, is enough. You have been the strong man for nearly 2 decades. It is time to give up.
Actually, no one says that in Turkey.
I don't know, but I know that the situation it is becoming more difficult because Erdogan is trying to act as a mediator between, as I told before, Ukraine, Russia, and the Western sphere. But we must also see that Erdogan, since 2013, with the Getty Park events, and also the scandals linked to his family, etc., has become estranged by the international community. So how a chancellor or foreign minister could confirm that Erdogan could be or could act as a mediator in a war-torn region, which is Central Europe, now a volatile one, which not only have the problem of Ukraine. Since August or July, Europe is facing problems in the Balkan Peninsula, linked to Kosovo, to Bosnia, and inside Bosnia, the Republika Srpska. So, what will be next? Is Erdogan truly a man who can bring peace to the region? No. Everybody know that Erdogan is moving like a modern neo-sultan. And what will be next? Who knows?
It's true that partidism is important because there are elections in a few months in Turkey, and it's possible that now Mayor in Istanbul can be the candidate and possibly the future president of the Republic of Turkey. There are possibilities, so who knows? What can one man do for retaining power?
All right, then, since we talk about Turkey, let me inform you guys about Turkey a little bit, what's going on here about opposition parties and the ruling party. Like you say, Juan, let me start from your words. The mayor of Istanbul was a strong candidate for the next presidency. But somehow, there's a coalition of 6 parties, 6 opposition parties. They couldn't be agree on this gentleman, Istanbul's mayor. So they then discuss about Ankara''s mayor, who is another popular guy, another popular figure for the people, especially old citizens. Let's say they have great sympathy for him. And then they also couldn't be able to agree on mayor of Ankara. And then leader of the second party, the biggest opposition party, CHP, which is secular, kind of leftist, and leader of this party announced himself unofficially, as a candidate. So today, coincidentally, as we are having that meeting, the 6 parties are having a meeting right now, and probably they will advance. They will advance to find a possible candidate. They will not announce because they have a principal rule. They don't want to announce their official candidate as long as the date of election is set. I mean, we know that only 8 months left for the elections, but still we don't know which date, or there will be elections, because in emergency times, elections can be delayed. So first they want to hear that elections will be held for sure, and then they will announce their official candidate. So far, the strongest candidate is the leader of the main opposition party, who is not really strong in my opinion. I will say, I mean, as a political analyst, I shouldn't use such a language, but such a style. But I would say frankly, in case he is a candidate, he has no chance to win. He has no chance. He already lost millions of elections in the past. So regarding what you told about Turkey's foreign policy, Turkey doesn't aim to bring peace in the region, just getting benefits. I mean, this is what all the nations are doing. I'm not going to blame Turkey or Turkish government for that. All nations, all governments are doing the same. And we were just talking about Russians' partial mobilization, and young man population are escaping from Russia, and the most popular destination for them is Turkey, and the secondary is Armenia. They're rushing. They're trying to find a seat in the plane, you know. And is that because Russian army needs manpower? They need soldiers? Not really. They just want to, it's in political science we call it Jacobinism. It's just designing the society, designing attention of the society. Russian army, Russian government doesn't need number of the. I mean, they are not lacking of soldiers, but they just want to canalize attention of the population in a nationalist way. They think that it will be benefit of Russian government in Ukraine, especially. I don't know if it will work or not. So this is what's going on. I mean, that can be a case for Turkey as well. For Turkey, for Iran, for China. I mean, we can make even wider this discussion. You know, we can even jump into Iran, what's going on in Iran, or maybe we need a special program for it. But this is characteristic of such regimes, such governments.
You're right, and also we must talk about not only about Turkey as a mediator, but also the neighboring countries of Ukraine and Russia, especially the press or the mass media don't talk about very much about a kind of Russophile country, which is inside the European Union and is a member of the EU since 2007, which is Bulgaria. Bulgaria also is facing a especially hard winter due to inflation, but also we must remember that Bulgaria will have general elections by the mid or the end of this month, the fourth general election in nearly less than 2 years. So what will be next if we have a coalition between GERB, the former governing party, the Bulgarian parliament would have probably a prime minister linked to Russia, which fall in this ways nearly 3 years ago do his business with Russia, with the Russian Federation. And what about if the next government would be a technocratic or a pro-European country, pro-European Union country, sorry. Maybe then Russia will become angry about it and belligerent. Who knows?
Yes, there are very interesting circumstances because in 2007 entered in the European Union Bulgaria and Romania, and everyone thought that Romania was unstable with a political system partialized, and now we see stability in political system in Romania and this stability in Bulgaria. In another country, a neighbor country, Macedonia, they had to change the name of the country for entering NATO, North Macedonia, and in that time, with the agreement with Greece, okay, well, we have plenty of sun, like is in the flag of Macedonia, for entering the European Union, and there appeared Bulgaria and saying, "Oh, I have some questions." What the hell? You are thinking about? You are important for veto the entering. But that veto was upset, and the government ended, and after the end of the government and settled the next elections, The parliament voted that yes, now Macedonia can enter European Union without veto. It's crazy. It's a situation crazy, as crazy as Russia trying to make a couple state in Montenegro, and Serbia not supporting the Sparska Republic that wants to separate from Bosniak and Croatian parts in the Bosnia Republic, that Bosnia wants to enter NATO. It's interesting because in that soap appears China. In Western Balkans appears China, appears Turkey, appears Russia. It's a problem because Europe could have done more, because 80% of foreign help in Serbia is made by European Union, but public opinion doesn't know this. So propaganda, real data, it's a problem there.
Yeah, I totally agree. Before Özcan also said about the situation in Turkey, but we must know, maybe I'm wrong, that in those former sphere of influence of the Ottoman Empire, now is facing problems. We know what happened after the Treaty of Saint Stephen and the Treaty of Berlin. And now we are facing again the same thing like in 1940, which was microstates again, Balkanization of Ukraine, Balkanization of Turkey maybe, Balkanization of the Balkan states, sorry, about the redundancy. What about North Macedonia? What about Bulgaria? Because Bulgaria is funny. And also, I cannot remember the thing that Juan Carlos said about the so-called soft coup of the in Montenegro in 2016 to take down the Milo Đukanović presidency, which Milo Đukanović is a kind of thief, is a kind of autocrat, but it was elected democratically by a narrow election, okay. But we must think that it was democratically elected, as I said before. And what about the sphere of influence again of Russia in the Balkans? That maybe preface what is happening now in Ukraine. Sorry.
If I can say one thing, and I give you the word, friend. There have been elections in Italy, and Berlusconi, with 85 years, saying, "Oh, poor Putin in Kremlin only wanted to take good people in the government of Kiev. Oh, poor people." What? Who is Putin for taking people inside a foreign government?
No.
Your turn, please, friend Özcan.
Regarding what Mariano told us, Balkanization of Balkan countries can be called re-Balkanization.
Yeah.
It could be a new political terms we just created. Re-Balkanization. I mean, sounds good when it's about etymology, but it doesn't sound good when it comes to geopolitics. Activities of Russia in Balkans are really interesting. I will say I'm totally agree with you. The one we saw a couple of months ago in Kosovo, right? The clash between Kosovo and Serbia. It was very fearful. I mean, I was really scared. We have already one war in Europe, and we were about to have the second one. It was really scary. It was really fearful. But let me come to. I mean, you for sure you have more knowledge than I do regarding Balkans. But let me come to point of the Turkey, since it's Russia and Turkey almost on the same page. Turkey is also doing some activities in Balkans, like they are using. I mean, let me make it clear. Many people, especially foreigners and Westerns, love to take Ottoman Empire as a reference when analyzing today's Turkey. I totally disagree with that. It's totally different story. I mean, it's the popular side, it's the visible side of the iceberg, but what's going on in Turkey is totally different right now. It's just the names. It's I guess it's a part of Turkish popular TV series or movies. But what's going on in Turkey right now is totally different than the Ottomans. And yeah, also in Balkans, Turkey using its soft power very effectively, very powerfully, gaining popularity in Balkans, making investments. Even though in Balkans, Turkey has more than one rival, Russia, Greece, and European Union, France, which means but despite all these difficulties Turkey is doing, using soft power and being at least, I mean, less than in the past, but still being a Balkan country, acting as a Balkan country. So today, like you say, Bulgaria had an election, and Bosnia had election yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
These things are really, really sensitive. I'm really curious about outcomes, and especially Bulgaria. Like you say, 5 elections in 1.5 year. I mean, that's really huge. I don't know if there's another example like that in the history. And Bulgarian election in Turkey, it interests Turkey because we have millions of Bulgarian Turkish, dual citizenships. In many provinces in Turkey, people, Turkish citizens who has Bulgarian passport, were going to polling stations to vote. So these outcomes are interesting, and I will just propose another program regarding Balkans once we are sure about results of the elections.
Yeah, you're right, and we must call maybe, as you said before, re-Balkanization or Balkanization 2.0. So yes, it is and also we must think in or people links the Turkish vision, about the current events to Turkey's soft power diplomacy about cuisine, about TV shows, soap operas, etc. And the reality is that yes, again you are right. Turkey, as the Ottoman Empire was in the Balkan Peninsula for so many years, so many centuries, I'll say this, wants to have his sphere of influence, as I told before, about regions, especially with Muslim population like Albania, Kosovo. Ankara is doing a very huge investment in Kosovo's infrastructure, and so on. And about this, we must say that if the Balkans have stability, especially Bulgaria after these so ongoing elections, Macedonia or North Macedonia with the name changing, etc. Albania maybe wants to be the greater Albania, but Kosovo is out of its bounds because also Turkey supports the independence of Kosovo, but not the reunification with Albania, and with Montenegro, with Serbia. There are many investments, but no one sees it or see these events on the mass media, the press, or the TV. We only watch Turkey as a kind of maybe possible future member of the European Union, in what will be a Eurasian country. That is the main problem. But also, no one sees the civil conflict, the conflict against the Erdogan presidency or the cabinet of ministers, etc., as well as the ongoing Kurdish question.
Yes, European factor is important in Balkans, at least in the past, in the present, and possibly in the future, because next year Croatia will be in Europe. The currency will be in Croatia, and there will be inside the Schengen agreement. That's why they had a problem within the borders in Bosnia, because Bosnia, they have a way to see, but it's a fake way to see, because in the area of Dubrovnik there are separated areas of Croatia, and there is a bridge being built for saving that, because if they were and there will be in the Schengen area, they will have to go with a passport for going from one side of Croatia to another, passing from Bosnia. So it will be a problem, and it is all being built a bridge. Jacques Delors, what was president of the European Commission, had a very important view of what Europe had to be, and that's why in the 90s was an important accession of Eastern Europe countries that were full member in May 2004. But in Western Balkans, that view is not being set up with Serbia, Montenegro, with Bosnia, with North Macedonia, and those countries. So that's the way another powers can go inside, like Turkey, like Russia, like China. It's very problematic for sure. And it's said that the Ukrainian situation by Russia can escalate nuclear, and that's a problem for the world, because that change of the mind of the use of nuclear power, nuclear weapon, could go to be used as a tactic power in the change of settlement in a ground of battle. So that idea can go to some kind of truce and or one type of peace. February 24, I had this idea, but I couldn't see a possibility, and I can't see a possibility now in Ukraine, but because I'm not Zelensky. If I were Zelensky, I would say no, what I'm going to say, but I will say, because I'm not Zelensky, I would accept some kind of loss of territorial power, territorial settlements of Ukraine in favor of Russia. But in that agreement, I would say, for this day in future, Ukraine will be as it was member of United Nations, United European, and NATO for Russian. So it will be treated as so in every relation by Russia, as it will be a huge, large process of integration. But from the day of that sign, it will be treated as it was member of European Union and NATO. That will be my only option to accept that agreement of peace.
Yes, you're right. And also, I forgot to say, sorry, that years ago, a good geostrategist, which was also President Carter's National Security Advisor, Zbigniew Brzezinski, published a book called The Grand Chessboard immediately after the Dayton Agreement or Dayton peace process between the former Yugoslavian countries, and say, from now on, okay, we must put our eyes on Kosovo, but also let's start thinking about the Eurasian Balkans. And someone said, what is Eurasian Balkans? Start thinking in the former regions of the USSR, like Ukraine, especially Eastern Ukraine, the Caucasus, the Southern Caucasus, and those region links with ethnic instability and language barriers or problems. Ukraine is the most recent example, but we have also Georgia, we have also Armenia with the Artsakh problem, Azerbaijan, also the Caucasus. But we must think also in what you told us, Juan Carlos, about this peace, peace agreement, which will be made. Okay, Ukraine or Zelensky or whatever will be with the next head of a state could say, okay, we relinquish this part of Ukraine in favor of Russia, the Donbas or whatever these regions could be called, Novorossiya, anything. But from this instant minute after the signing of the accord, Ukraine could be a most possible candidate for the European Union integration as well as a NATO member. So, in other ways, Russia it's simple to say, but it's like when someone in the Kremlin say, okay, we could make a peace deal, but Ukraine must reject or relinquish his European Union candidature or the accession to the NATO. What you're talking about, man? We are talking about a sovereign country. It's like, no, for example, now Spain cannot be also a member of the Euromed, or the alliance between Euro-Mediterranean countries, to make commercial deals with Tunisia, with Egypt, because you must be or European or African. So I totally agree with you, Juan Carlos.
Well, in political science, we believe that the states, the governments, are organism, like human, like humankind. The governments also have the feelings. They sometimes acting with reasonable, or sometimes acting like emotional. If you remember, right before the war, Ukrainian war, the US and the West, UK probably as well, offering the Ukrainian government just leave the Russian speaker province to Russia, and then it could be easier for Ukraine for sure to join the NATO. You know, it could be a different country, and it's like you say, Ukraine 2.0 or something like that. It could be, and Ukrainian government didn't accept that. Which means they behave emotionally. You know, it's our soil, it's part of our mainland. We will never give up. What happened right now? They annex it. I'm not going to tell. Well, Ukrainian army will take it back or no? I don't know. I'm not military analyst, but something for sure. Many people will die. Many people will lose their lives. So that could be easier way, or a smarter way to just give up these provinces. I know it's not usual. I know it's not easy to accept. I know none of the governments on the earth will accept such offer very easily. But I mean, acting smarter could save many lives, and it could help Ukraine to be part of European Union and NATO as well, easier, because it's a new country. It's basically, there is no Russian speaker, and Russians have no excuse. Mr. Putin has no excuse to attack Ukraine and Crimea as well. I mean, so it will be painful. I mean, this option, the offer, this proposal by US will be very painful for the Russia. You know, just imagine Sweden and Finland are about to be member of NATO, and Ukraine will be also a member of NATO. And who knows, maybe same scenario will be valid for you, Georgia as well. It could be even a model, you know. But it didn't happen. But what we have right now is Russia annexed 15% of Ukraine.
And I can say, and I have put it into the official account of Armenia yesterday, leaving CESTO, CSTO, because Russia has no power to endure the compromise of helping Armenia inside that treaty of security, has started the very long way to Armenian integration in NATO. That's my point of view. Because you can't, you can see, because in 2014, European membership was earlier problem than NATO membership for Ukraine within Russia. That idea is, oh, I can punch you like it was a school, as we could be in a school. I can punch you in your head. I am Russia and you are Ukraine. Good, fantastic. And the problem is, you can't go with having new friends for protecting for me, because that could be a problematic when I want to punch you. If I want to punch you, I will have your meal, I will have your money, I will have everything I know I want. So, at that point, Russia wanted an agreement and neutrality of Ukraine. Why? Because maybe tomorrow Russia wants more of Ukraine, and if Ukraine is inside NATO, inside the European Union, it's impossible to get that part. So that's why if we talk about this, we can reach an agreement giving part of Russia of Ukraine to Russia, but the security that that country, the remaining country, will be safe as they want. In the 2019 election, the presidential election, when Zelenskyy was made the president, in the first round, Zelenskyy won in Zaporizhzhia and won in Kherson. When after that they say, oh, people of Kherson and in Zaporizhzhia, they are liberated by Russia, by the terrorist system, they elected Zelenskyy. They themselves, those Oblast. And in that election, 60% of the first round elected candidates of Euro-Western option. First one was Zelenskyy, second one was Petro Poroshenko, and third one was Yulia Tymoshenko. Three of these candidates gained 60% of the voters in the democratic elections. So in the whole country, the main voters wanted a Euro-Western relationship with NATO and European Union. That's the point. And for sure, there is a problem because it's a long year, 2022, and in Pakistan in January was a problem. Yes, being built by Nazarbayev and the actual Sultan of Kazakhstan, Tokayev. But if they have a free summit to join in European Union, Tokayev will be very happy. If you say, oh, you don't have to do nothing within the judiciary, with the political system, with nothing. You come inside and you freely what you want. Oh, happy. But that day, they would have an invasion from Russia. So it's more territorial problems than Ukraine. And Kazakhstan has said, oh, those oblasts you have added to your country, I do not recognize. So that Tokayev is risky. I wouldn't go close to a window.
Sadly, it is true. It is true. And also, about 1 month, 1 month and a half before actual dates, the former Russian president Dmitry Medvedev said, "What is Kazakhstan? It is an artificial entity." Terrible things about the other province of the ancient Russian Turkestan. Also, there has been problems between the Tajik-Kyrgyzstani border. We have to say also the Kazakhstan issue in Uzbekistan. the Armenian Azerbaijani classes. So now Russia have not only the Ukrainian front, there has been at least 5 fronts. And also we will talk about Transnistria, also the situation near the Czech border with Hungary, that we have a a prime minister, which is Russophile, but a society that dislike the way it is turning all about, not for because they are against the war, no, because many Ukrainian refugees are coming up, into Hungary, just like the Syrians, Afghans, or Iraqis in the last months of 2015. So the situation is going in a kind of red alert, which we call in that way. And especially the former Soviet Central Asian republics are fed up of the Eurasian Union, and maybe even Armenia could say, I give up. I want to get on my own and maybe establish a kind of commercial partnership with the European Union. And that not was the fault of Yerevan, of Astana, Nur Sultan, Dushanbe. It is the way that the Kremlin have moved out in imperial manners toward his former Soviet provinces or republics.
In that point, we just were talking about NATO, Germany, Turkey, the painful allies. In case of the Eastern Bloc, there is no painful allies, but there is a painful leader, which is Russia. Just Russia doesn't give confidence to his allies, neither Iran nor Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan or Armenia. It's if I was president of one of this country, I would really be. I couldn't sleep very well because I don't know what Russia will do tomorrow. Could sell me out to NATO. Could let my neighbor to attack my soil. That's the problem of Russia, and all the problems you just listed in Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Tajikistan, Kyrgyzstan as well, Armenia and Azerbaijan. All the problems were created or started from the Soviet Union. And all these things supposed to solve problems. It's part of policy of the reducing nationalism. It's Stalin's program, I guess, reducing nationalism and increasing integration of nations of Soviet Union or something like that. But all these things creating more problem, causing more nationalism, and causing more military conflict.
True. Lenin knew some kind of that when he requested to make a book about nations and nationalism to Stalin, and Stalin gave that some kind of Bible. For sure, Mariano, could say better that type of thinking of Stalin, former banking robber, that Stalin moved countries inside the Soviet Union through the Second World War and in the 40s and the 50s, and in Crimea and in Siberia, and he liked this retaliation and his form of making friends and new friends and more friends and close friends in the countries inside the Soviet Union. And that idea, it's in that war that was 2 years ago, 2020, within Azerbaijan and Armenia, and Turkey wanted to be there to mediate, to be an intermediate country, but Russia entered to bring peace. And no, Turkey can't be that mediator. It's Russia who want to. But now Armenia requested help for Russia, and Russia has even not sent an answer. Not an answer. And Armenia is alone because Lachin corridor is in hands of Azerbaijan, and it was prepared that 2 years later would be that, but with a force of Russia aside, and there is no, because all Russia help is in Ukraine, as we all know. So that's when the mediator, the the, the father of the peace, goes to another land, the sons of the war starts gaming in Turkestan, in Armenia, in other parts of former Soviet Union. So that's the problem. Where Russia wanted to be, now there is a vacuum to be cleaned. And who will clean? In Central Asia is China, well, who wants to enter to supply Russia. And European Union and United States can go for another countries because Tony Blinken was in a meeting, a three parts meeting, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and United States. It's surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, about my final words, because I have to go, so sorry so much, because it has been a very nice chat, an interesting chat, and talk, by the way. Is that, yes, the problems especially came from 1938 to 1915 population transfer in the Soviet Union, especially Russian-speaking people to the Crimean Peninsula, the expulsion of the Crimean Tatars into the Soviet Republic, which is not allowed to return until 1989, 2 years before the Soviet collapse, but also the deportation of Northern Caucasus peoples like the Chechens, the Ingushetians, the Kalmykians, even Kurdish people, which used to live in Armenia and Georgia, were expelled into Central Asia, and that, especially even after the death of Stalin, has been a painful scheme, even after also the dissolution of the Soviet Union. So we must talk about a old problem that persists today. Is all that I can say until now.
Yeah. I totally agree. Like I repeat, let me repeat, all the problems we have today in Central Asia, Caucasia, Eastern Europe are caused from the Soviet Union policies. Like Mariano just mentioned, even Kurds were exiled from the Caucasia to the Central Asia, Kyrgyzstan and Kazakhstan. Right now, these countries have a huge population of Kurds. This policy is supposed to create a peace, but right now, what we have is more military conflicts.
And we hope that peace is possible, but not that peace that some German says that you always have the possibility of peace. When anyone comes to you to put you, you always have the possibility of surrender. You surrender and you have peace. But it's not true peace, it's cemetery peace. And that peace not endures forever. So for real peace, you have to question what is inside. And when we see very questionable situations about what happens in Ukraine, saying, oh, this one makes that movement, the other, we have to go to basis. The basis is Ukraine is a sovereign state, is a free state, independent from 30 years ago. Wants to maintain that independence, and Russia came to invade. From that point, we can go on with the analysis, but that point is very important. So, I was very pleased of talking with you. So, make some little statement of goodbye.
Okay, let me take the floor because I know Mariano need to go. I just want to say thank you so much. It was a very fruitful meeting from my side. I learned a lot, and it was a pleasure to meet you, Mariano, again. And thank you for both, and see you soon.
It has been my pleasure, Özcan. I hope that everything will be fine there. Thank you for your words. I appreciate everything you say. I learn a lot as well. Goodbye for everyone, and thanks for all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.